Welcome to the Indie Author Method, where we share insights from authors on their writing journey. On the weekends, when you have more time and space in your day, we sit down with another author to discuss their processes and the insights they can share with you. Today, I'm so excited to talk with my friend Levi Bronze, the author of Two Yellow Cabooses, which recently won the 2023 Maxy Award for Best Thriller. Levi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on your program.
I feel like I get to celebrate a little bit in this award with you because I got to read an ARC review copy of Two Yellow Cabooses. Feels like, was that a year ago?
It's been several months ago. So yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Appreciate you doing it too.
Oh, you're very welcome. What inspired you to write Two Yellow Cabooses? I love the book.
Well, there's an old song by Leonard Skinner called The Ballad of Curtis Lowe. You familiar with the song?
I am. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Leonard Skinner. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from a small town in Alabama. And so the song I can kind of relate to. And what I wanted to do is take that idea of a little white boy that has an older man that's as a friend that's a black man. And I wanted to kind of run with that and create in Abe Loomis, who is the black man in my story, the kind of man that every young man needs in a father. And so fathering is a big thing to me because I did not grow up with a real healthy home life and didn't really have the kind of father figure that I think a young man, a boy should have. So I wanted to create in Abe, maybe he's not a perfect man because none of us are perfect. You know, he's got, and you've read the story, you know, he's not a perfect man. He's got some warts and some problems. And, but he's a tremendous mentor and father figure to Mickey, the little boy in the book. Mm-hmm. And so I really wanted to take this idea of a little white boy who happens to become friends with an older black man, and the older black man being more than just a friend, but becoming like a hero and a protector and a mentor to the young boy. So that's what I did. Yeah.
One of my favorite things about the book is your use of time. I love playing with time and time constraints in a story. I've written one book that's set completely within a week. I've written a book that was set completely within 18 hours. So to see a book like yours, take place and really flesh out the years, right, of Mickey's life, starting in, I think it was like, what, 6th or 7th grade that we meet him.
It was. He was in the 6th grade whenever it started. Yeah.
And so, I mean, we follow Mickey and his life and his relationship with Abe through that, the course of 7 years. Whenever you sat down to write Two Yellow Cabooses, tell me about your writing process. Did you know that you were going to tell that story in that timeline, or did that come out as you developed it?
Well, you probably have heard other writers say this before, but I really don't know what my characters are going to do. You probably can relate. I don't know what they're going to do till I sit down and start interacting with them. And so the writing process is a discovery process for me as well. Like the book that I'm working on right now, I just finished the first chapter. And whenever I sat down and wrote the first line, I had no idea that the chapter was going to turn out the way it has, that it's going to end where it has ended. So when I started Two Yellow Cabooses, I knew I had an idea of how I wanted the book to start. Okay. And I had an idea about how I wanted it to end, but it did end differently than I originally planned.
Okay.
But what happened all in between and the people that came into the story, all of that was a discovery process for me. The setting of the story is in my hometown. I just changed the name of the town and the surrounding towns. But you'll recall in the story, there's a lot of landmarks and places that Abe and Mickey go. All of those things. I mean, I could take you to my hometown and say, there's the Dare Delight and there's the Black Panther. I could show you all of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I love that. It sounds like, your hometown was an influence on the story, but do you have any like literary influences, or who are some of the authors that you didn't only read growing up, but who are some of the authors that influence you now as a writer?
Well, you know what? I didn't read a whole lot growing up. because of the family dynamic that I grew up in. Okay. Then I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Sure.
But what got me to thinking about writing was when I was in the 6th grade, I had a teacher, an English teacher, who was very encouraging to me. He assigned us an assignment to read a story and then rewrite it. Okay. So I read the story and wrote a poem. And the next day, we turned in our papers the next day. And I don't know if it was the immediately followed, maybe it was after the weekend, but shortly after that, we came back to class. And the teacher says, well, I had some great papers this weekend to read, but there's one that I must read to you out loud. And he read my poem. And you know, Andrew, you just don't ever know the power of an encouraging word. Just, just something, the Bible says the power of life and death is in the tongue. Well, you know what? From that man's tongue, there was a spark of life. I thought, well, here's something that I can do. And then whenever I went to college, I had an English professor that called me to his desk after class was over. And he told me, he says, you've got a good brain when it comes to writing. You need to think about this. And so, I guess the very first author that really had a significant impact. And I'd read some stuff, of course, had read it in college,
Right.
Gary Paulson's The Hatchet,
Oh, yeah.
You know that book? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And The Bumblebee Flies Anyway, because
I was going to say, I recently spoke to a middle school and they asked me, what's my favorite book? And to this day, I tell them Gary Paulson's Hatchet is still 25 years later, almost 30 years later, still one of my favorite books of all time.
Right. Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh, yeah.
And, but anyway, the first book that really jogged my writer enthusiasm was John Grisham's The Firm. And what I'm going to say sounds arrogant, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant. I promise I don't. But when I read John Grisham's The Firm, just the way he writes, it's very simple, easy to understand, to the point. You can see things happen. It's different than reading classic literature. It's not like reading The Count of Monte Cristo. And it's just, it's very...
it's approachable.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And when I read The Firm, I thought, you know what? Maybe I can do this.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do this.
Yep.
And so I started writing and I wrote my first novel. I still have it today. It hasn't been published. I would not put it in the marketplace. I was just learning I went back into it about 3 months ago because the publisher wants to see some of my old work, but it's not ready to be in the marketplace. I was learning my craft.
Yeah, I understand. That's smart too. It's smart to understand that about yourself as well. It's smart to understand like this is me learning.
Sure.
I'm going to get better at this.
Yeah. And so I finished my first book and in my mind I had written the next great American novel. And it just, if people could just read it, it was going to take over the world.
Yep.
So, I submitted it to literary agents and I thought, man, everybody I submit to is going to be, they're going to contact me and say, yes, we'd like to represent you. And every single one of them rejected me. Okay. So I have been rejected hundreds and hundreds of times. And so I just continued. Then I put that one down and wrote another one. And then I wrote another one. And then I wrote a young adult fantasy called The Red Brick Road. Mm-hmm. And it's the story of Dorothy before she took the Yellow Brick Road. And I self-published it on Amazon. And it got some good reviews and I've sold a few copies of it. And then I wrote Two Yellow Cabooses and I submitted it. And like within 10 days, the publisher reached out to me and offered me a contract. It was an amazing thing. But so there's something to be said about not giving up, because as a new writer, the rejection it's brutal. I mean, it makes you second guess that you can, who am I kidding? Am I kidding myself? I can't write. This is garbage. Who was I to think that I could write something that people would read? For me, that's what the rejections coming in. Thanks, but this isn't for us. Was just saying, you know what, you idiot? Why did you send me that? Why did you think I would want to represent that? So that's the way that the rejection affected me. But I just kept on writing, and the people that did read my work would encourage me, you know, and I started considering all of these creators of art. I remember watching a documentary on ZZ Top. I see you got a guitar and a bass behind you. Are you a Top fan?
Oh yeah.
Okay. ZZ Top said when they first got started, when they first started touring, their first concert, one guy showed up. One guy to see ZZ Top. Now, I mean, look how celebrated they are, and they've got arguably one of the greatest guitarists to ever live playing for them. Okay, and so, and I noticed, I got to thinking about the fact that all these significant artists, they had most of them, maybe not everyone, but I'm going to say probably 90% of them had very humble beginnings, and they just did not quit.
Yeah.
Did not quit. And the bands that I like and you know, that I enjoy listening to, when they got started, man, I'm not so sure they were taken seriously. I know my favorite band, their first album was not regarded very highly at all. Now it's a classic, you know, and highly sought out. So just not quitting and reflecting upon the positive words of a 6th grade English teacher and a college literature professor, and having a model of engaging writing in front of me by Mr. Grisham. All those things just kind of got me thinking maybe I can do it. So
James Clear talks about that in his book Atomic Habits. He says that success is really just an ordinary amount of effort over an inordinary amount of time. Right? If you do it longer, if you don't give up longer than the average, you will see yourself succeed.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got thinking, my wife told me, she said, you know, what if your work never gets published? So what?
Yeah.
Look at what you will leave for your family and your future children and grandchildren. I mean, look what you will leave for them. They'll have something that you wrote that they can read, that you wrote.
Yeah.
And so that was very motivating as well. So
it's something that you control. You know, Epictetus talks about that, how we should focus on the things that we control. We don't focus, you know, we don't control what the what the book publishers or the agents say or think, but we do control how much effort and what we put into our work.
Yeah.
Getting onto that same subject though, you know, talking about, you know, getting rejected. What are some of the, you know, after, you know, you said you got a contract within 10 days of submitting Two Yellow Cabooses, but what are some of the challenges you faced when writing the book specifically, and how did you overcome them?
That particular Two Yellow Cabooses?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, the little boy Mickey and is very much me. Okay. Someone that I could relate to. Now, not in every way. He's not a carbon copy of me.
Sure.
But, you know, the book is written from Mickey's point of view. Yeah. And so I was emotionally very tied to Mickey. And so I was able to experience that with Mickey. So I didn't really have any real struggles writing that story. It's probably one of the most free-flowing stories that I had written.
Okay.
The one thing that was, I guess, maybe the most difficult for me may have been the racial dynamic.
Sure.
Writing a character that comes from an experience that I have never experienced. And you know that the prologue in Two Yellow Cabooses is very significant to the story. So I was concerned that I would be misinterpreted and be criticized. for writing from the perspective of a pre-Civil War slave in the prologue. That was a real struggle for me. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Are people going to just say that I'm totally non-credible? Are they going to be critical? Are they going to toss it in the garbage? I even had one ARC reader tell me, you know what, you may not find a good audience because of the prologue. I had one other reader that says, I think you should put a pre-qualifier on the book at the very beginning because of what your prologue is. So so those were some of the struggles that I had. But at the end of the day, I thought, you know what? I'm going to write what I want to write. And if nobody likes it, it'll have to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to write from the heart about what I want to write about. And what you said, don't focus on controlling the things that I cannot control, So I guess that would have been the one of the big struggles for me is if I have this character say this, are they going to think ill of the author?
Right.
If this happens to this character, are they going to think ill of the author? That was a concern that I had because of the racial
Sure.
dynamic of the book. But as it turns out, my friend, people absolutely love that aspect of the book.
Yeah.
It's not a turnoff at all,
Yeah, no, I loved it. I love the book, and I love the story entailed, and I love Abe's background, and I think you have to include that to understand where he came from and the things that he is. I don't want to necessarily say atoning for, but the things that he is doing later in life. Yeah.
Exactly.
Talking about writing from the heart and being true as an author, what is the message or takeaway you hope readers get from Two Yellow Cabooses?
Well, I would hope that we would all be challenged to be an Abe Loomis, because I believe there's a lot of Mickey Tuckers out there.
Yeah.
And whenever a Mickey Tucker comes our way and crosses paths with us, we take it upon ourselves and accept the wonderful opportunity to have a great positive influence on someone maybe that is neglected and forgotten about and nameless in other places. But with us, they can be someone that we can pour into. And who knows, maybe the one that is least regarded in the school or in the town or wherever has the most incredible potential that just needs a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of a role model.
Sure.
And really achieves their potential. And also, I would hope that the book does a lot regarding racial reconciliation in our society. One of the things that is most grievous to me is how racially charged of a society that we live in, and how we really, as an American society, we still have a hard time looking beyond the color of skin. And this character, Abe Loomis, is a man of great character. I mean, he's a respectable. I mean, he is the kind of man. Like I said, he's the kind of man I believe that every young boy would be blessed to have as a dad or as a mentor. Yep. So I wanted to kind of really cast an idea of what could be if we would just follow Abe's example and look for the Mickey Tuckers in life, Yeah. And so that's something I hope is taken away from the book, that it really brings about maybe a reconciliation on the racial front. I would hope that the book appeals to people of all colors and of all ethnic backgrounds and socioeconomic status. I would hope that it appeals to everyone, and it kind of sparks the good, the love of humanity in everyone that reads the book.
Yeah. Whenever I was reading it, it reminded me a lot of Marcus Aurelius's quote, where he says, "Don't argue about what a good man should be one." That this book really brought that home for sure. Levi, where can our viewers and where can our listeners of the podcast find you and find your book?
Okay. Well, you can follow me on Instagram and author Levi Bronze. I'm also on Facebook. I have a website, levibronze.com, and the book can be purchased on Amazon, all online retailers. You can purchase it in Books A Million stores, and you can also publish it direct from the publisher, which is Black Rose Writing. You just go to blackrosewriting.com/thrillers/Two Yellow Cabooses, and if you will just use the discount code pre-order 2023, you'll get a 15% discount on the book.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Levi, before I let you go, one more question. It's always this, and I'm sure this has already happened to you because you're going to be at a book signing event or a conference. You're going to be somewhere, and somebody's going to have a well-worn copy of your book, and they're going to say, "Levi, you are my favorite author, and I want to be a writer. I have stories to tell. What's the biggest piece of advice you would give me?" So what's the biggest piece of advice that Levi Bronze would give that writer?
Sit down, open up your computer, get out your word processor or whatever you use, and put the words down on paper, and read and learn from people that have become skilled at the craft. As I told you before, the very first novel that I wrote that I thought was going to be the next,
Yeah.
When I finished it, I thought, I've just written the great American novel. Well, I quickly found out that I was the only one that felt that way. Now as I go back and read that, I thought, man, what was I thinking? Why did I write this way? And so, I read some books along the way on the craft of writing that was beneficial. I talked to some other writers. I just can, and I read other books. It's amazing how much you can learn about the art of writing just by reading, someone else's work.
Stephen King talks about that. He says there's no shortcuts. Ryan Holiday says speed reading is bullshit. Like you have to, there are no shortcuts. You have to read a lot in order to write a lot, right? If you don't read, you don't have the tools to write.
Exactly. You need to be reading so you can see. I mean, I'm to the point now, whenever I read a novel, I'll read it with a pencil or with a pen.
Yeah.
I'll underline words. I thought, man, I want to use that word.
That's right. That's right. As you should.
The way this person introduced this character, I'm not going to plagiarize them, but you know what? I see their skill. I see the way they do that. I'm going to borrow that, and so, and just it's very educational to just continue to read, because you will learn from the people that are publishing books that people are reading. You will learn the craft by watching them do it. It's one thing to go to a class and be taught. That's helpful. That's very helpful. But it's also very helpful to just open a book and read this person that is a regarded author. They didn't get that way. They didn't become regarded for no reason. That they became regarded because people read their books, and they read their books because their stories are good and their craft is well done. And so, watching them do what they do, observing how they did what they did, has been very helpful, to me.
100%.
Yeah.
Levi Bronze, thank you so much for your time this evening.
You betcha.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And again, really love the book, and I hope to see more from you in the future.
We'll be in touch. Okay, my friend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.